Hi, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography here in beautiful sunny Naples, Florida. And aspiring cinematographers and independent filmmakers rejoice because an affordable line of cinema lenses has been introduced courtesy of Rokinon. These things are up to 14 times less expensive than their Canon equivalents. But just because they're 14 times less expensive, does that mean they're 14 times worse? We're going to put the Rokinon 85mm T1.5 to the test today to find out. Bring on the Cine lenses. What exactly are Cine lenses anyway? Well, a Cine lens is designed specifically with the digital videographer / cinematographer in mind. The lenses have gears that protrude out of the sides of the lens that allow for external accessories like follow focus devices or aperture control devices that help you, the videographer, maintain focus on a moving subject and adjust changing light within a scene with nice smooth dials that connect to your lens. Now, if you're serious about your videography, you're going to want to at some point consider a Cine lens. But buyer beware, these things are not cheap. Let me give you an example. The Canon Cine 85mm T1.3 will set you back, are you sitting down? $4,950 US. Combine that with the cost of follow focus gears and base plates, frankly, videography can very quickly set you back tens of thousands of dollars. Now, to be clear, I'm going to pretend for 1 second to say that this thing is in the same league as the Canon 85 Cinema T1.3. Or do I? Let's get on to the review. Up first is build quality. And frankly, it's a much better grade of quality that you would expect from something that's so relatively inexpensive. Plastic is not cheap. It's actually pretty solid. It's got a nice housing here. And then you have the focus ring and aperture ring, which are extremely smooth. And frankly, these are actually, they almost feel smoother than my L glass does. Of course, it is an aspect of a cinema lens. You have this declicked aperture ring, and to explain what that means, as I rotate this, you can see the aperture ring opening and closing. It does so very, very smoothly and not with any resistance at all because there's no click, so it's designed to be a very smooth operating function to help you change in your lighting environment. Lens hood on the flip side is really cheap. It doesn't really snap into place. It kind of just falls on here and you could just really just take it off with hardly any pressure at all. And it's of a really low grade of plastic, very much unlike the lens itself. They couldn't be any more different in terms of their quality. But it's functional, it serves its purpose well. And all in, I have to say that Rokinon's done a fine job here. On the build quality, I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, so up next is focus speed and accuracy. In reality, the Rokinon focuses as fast as your hands or your follow focus device will go. That said, this thing feels like it's geared perfectly for a follow focus device. But in the end, the Rokinon is a manual focus lens, and as such, this portion of the review really isn't applicable. So the Rokinon, for focus speed and accuracy, gets a big fat 0 out of 10. Okay, so up next is optical quality and the quality of the results. The Rokinon is pretty sharp wide open at T1.5. In fact, I go as far as to say it's impressive in the center and really good on the edges. The bokeh rendering is pleasing. It's not as buttery as the Canon's 11-blade aperture, but it's really nice. And the reality is bokeh rendering is one of those things that you and I care about much more than the average Joe consumer who may be watching your stuff in a movie theater or on YouTube. The bottom line is the Rokinon is good enough, and that's arguably its most important and impressive attribute. With regard to optical quality, I think it's fair to say that the Rokinon delivers a much better performance than expected. It's not perfect, but I don't think it needs to be. It's also one thing to tell you about how great some things optical quality is. It's another thing to show you. The next minute is going to be a brief series of clips taken with the Rokinon 85mm. Okay, up next is value. Simply put, in the brave new world of cinematography, the value of the Rokinon is nothing short of extraordinary. No, there are no electronic components, and no, the lens is not optically perfect, nor does it need to be. As you know, optics means slightly less in motion pictures than they do in stills. But at the end of the day, this lens is not quite up to the par of the Canon, but you have to consider that this lens is only about 1/14th the price of the Canon, meaning that you get about 80% of the lens for about 8% of the cost. So the bottom line is, for value, this thing is nothing short of extraordinary and easily a 10 out of 10. Okay, it's time to draw some conclusions about the Rokinon Cinema 85 T1.5 lens. We're actually shooting this last segment with the lens. If you're new to videography, or just want to take advantage of one of your DSLR's most underutilized features, then the Rokinon 85mm T1.5 is a great alternative to the second mortgage-causing cinema lenses from Canon. But to sum up this review in a nutshell, it goes like this. The build quality. It's a nice high grade of plastic, except for the lens hood, and a heavy and substantial feeling lens. The focus and aperture rings are a Canon L quality smooth. Overall, it's very impressive. We gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Focus speed and accuracy. It is a cinema lens after all. In reality, nearly all of them lack autofocus. But the focus ring is exceptionally smooth and the aperture ring is declicked. Unfortunately, there is no autofocus, so it gets a 0 out of 10. Optical quality. It's not Canon Cinema or even L quality, nor was it ever meant to be. But it is really, really good, especially for the money. Relatively speaking, it's a 10. Real world, however, it's an 8.5 out of 10. Quality of the results. It's hard to pixel peep in video, but if a big production house used one of these lenses, all but the most discerning of viewers wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And this is exactly where the Rokinon excels. It's good enough, and that's its best attribute. It's easily a 9 out of 10. Value. If I give this lens a 20, I would. Relative to the competition, this is the steal of the century. It's easily a 10 out of 10. Overall, as a general optic, it only gets a 36 out of 50 and our recommended rating. However, if you're going to use this lens for its intended purpose, which is videography and cinematography, and given that many of the Canon cinema lenses don't have autofocus either, that's by design, then that gives this Rokinon a 36 out of 40, making it a sensational value relative to the competition. The final word. For about 8% of the price of the Canon Cinema equivalent, you're getting about 80% of the lens. This could quite possibly be the biggest no-brainer in the history of serious videography. Hats off, Rokinon. It's a job well done. This is Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography here in beautiful sunny Naples, Florida. And until the next time, happy shooting.